Greetings, diners and other viewers. And you're here with us on the collapsed cafe of the Doomstead Diner. And this week, I am back together again with Irv Mills. And we're going to be doing more discussion of preparations for the post-collapse world. And cheers. I have another Bloody Mary today, too. Irv is going to cover in this episode food issues and basically preserving food under conditions where you don't have refrigeration at all. You can't get gas for your personal generator. You don't have enough solar cells to run your fridge and so forth. You don't have an alternate motor source to compress the gas, etc., etc., etc. There are any number of reasons why your refrigeration can fail, besides besides electricity failing. There are other ways to run them. But so he's going to talk some about that, and to start off, one in particular, an ancient technique, pickling. All right, and you can pickle almost anything in one way or the other. Although I am not familiar with all the ways in which you pickle everything. I do have my own jar of pickles. This is my current favorite brand here, because I can't get my truly favorite one, which is Batamte pickles, made by a pickling factory in Brooklyn. Mostly I had them in New York when I lived there. There were a few cities around the country that I lived that I was able to get them, but I can't get them here in Alaska. Okay, so this one is pretty good though. Up against the Batamte, maybe not. I don't like it as much. I'd have to taste them side by side now in order to really make a distinction. But it's a pretty good pickle. So Irv will talk about pickling, and then I'm going to talk about my particular hobby and interest in terms of crafting that I have, and I've practiced some in heating and lighting with very basic materials and stuff you can put together yourself, and will work very well when applied in the right situations. And I'll talk about that when we get to it. So, that's the topic for today. No coronavirus. Well, we probably will drift into it eventually, but let's get started on the prepping and the food and the lighting and the heating situation with Irv. So, Irv, say hi to the group.
Hello.
Yeah.
Nice to be here again.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Thanks.
Why don't you
So,
take off on the pickling?
yeah. Well, right at the moment, my cucumber patch is delivering me a bumper crop of cucumbers. And the thing about cucumbers, if you don't have a fridge to keep them in, they don't last very long. Of course, there's an answer to that, and that is to pickle them. You can pickle a lot of different types of vegetables, but cucumbers are sort of the premier thing that people do. I've got a bottle of them with me here that I made just last night. And it's going to have to, I wouldn't want to open it for at least a month, but it'll be ready to go end of August sometime. Anyways, I took a bunch of pictures of this process, and if we can get Skype to cooperate with us here, I'll be able to show them to folks, and I can comment on what the pictures are about, just basically like a slideshow. And I hope RE will break in with any questions you might have along the way. So I'm just going to hit. Hit the. Go ahead.
And Skype cooperating with us is always a crapshoot, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, we do our best, and I have a backup camera running, and so worst comes to worst, Irv will send me the slides, and then I will edit them into the video. But hopefully, the embedding works in the video directly. That would make my life way easier. Okay, go ahead.
I'd like that to do. Okay, I'm going to hit this here. And I mustn't have got it quite right. There we are. Okay, start sharing, it says. And I think we are now, and I'm going to hit that. Okay. RE, did we,
looks like
yes,
patch of
you
pickles.
should, yeah, you should be seeing my cucumber patch here. This is on my front yard, actually. I'm one of those people who has nerve enough to actually grow vegetables in his front yard instead of entirely grass. It seems to go over fairly well around here. I think there are 2 other people on my street that are doing the same thing, or something similar anyways. You'll note there's a 2-foot high.
There's no HOA, no homeowners.
There's no homeowners association around here, and the municipality doesn't bother about us at all. Bigger problem we got is rabbits, and you'll notice the chicken wire fence around this area, because the rabbits would be in here. They'd have stripped it bare if I didn't take steps to keep them out. Anyways, so I've this is about 5 feet wide and I don't know, 16 to 18 feet long, and lots of cucumbers this year. There's
that patch, just that patch that you're showing. How many cucumbers will you get out of that in the season?
In the season? Now that's a good question. I'm trying to put it in some kind of terms that'll make something. If you know what a bushel is, I expect I'll get several bushels out of it. The thing is, for the pickles I'm making, I want small cucumbers in the range of sort of like 1 inch to 3 inch. So if you pick them when they're that size, you don't get nearly as many, but they're nicer. You can get them, let them go till they're up 6 inches long, and occasionally that happens anyway if you miss them when they're littler, and you come back a day or 2 later and they're too huge to pickle, really. Fortunately, my mother-in-law likes to slice them up and make sandwiches from it, so she's been doing well on that score.
The commercial pickles that I put up there at the beginning, they're about 6 inches long, and they're put in vertically into the container, and I like that size. That's like the size that you get in the New York Jewish delis. In my era, anyway.
If all goes according to plan, tomorrow I'm going to make some dill pickles, or start some dill pickles, using some of the larger ones that I have left over that are stored in the fridge at the moment. And that should work out well too. But for the ones I'm making, I probably should explain why I got into this. When I was a kid on the farm, my grandmother lived with us, and she was born in 1885. She had a lot of old-fashioned sort of skills, and she had this recipe for pickles that for a long time only existed in her head. And finally somebody wrote it down, and my sister ended up having it, and she scanned it and emailed it to me. And I tried it last year and saw where I was going wrong, and hopefully I've got it right this year. But anyways, in front of us here on the screen, we've got some of the blossoms, which then turn into the actual fruit of the cucumber vine, which here with my hand holding back the leaves, you can see several cucumbers, a bigger one further back and a couple of small ones. The little ones are just exactly what I would prefer myself for the recipe I'm using, but I'll take anything up to about 3 inches long.
Now,
what do we got? Oh yeah.
Is there any particular variety of cucumber that you use?
The name of the variety eludes me at the moment, but there are, generally speaking, I would divide cucumbers into two types. There are pickling cucumbers, which the ones you see in front of you here are pickling cucumbers, and they have those spiny little warts, for lack of a better term, on them, which are a protection mechanism, I guess. And then there are cucumbers intended to be eaten fresh, and they have more of a smooth skin, and they grow quite a bit longer. So yeah, I'm growing cucumbers that are meant to be pickled. And some of the plants there where I actually started back in March inside under lights. By the time I was ready to plant them, they weren't doing as well as I liked. So I went to a local garden center and bought some additional plants. And well, I've got two types probably here, even though they look pretty much the same. Anyways, come on, there we go. So here we come in my front door and straight into my kitchen. I've been picking those cucumbers. Let's see, we were away on a trip. We got back last Tuesday night, so I started picking on Wednesday. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I guess that's 5 days worth of cucumbers stored in the fridge. And by Sunday night, I was ready to go. The recipe calls for you to soak them in a brine overnight, made with pickling salt, as you see, and water. So I made up some in the afternoon on Sunday. You don't want to. Part of the thing is you heat the water up to help the salt dissolve, and then you put it in the fridge to chill it down because you don't want to cook the cucumbers. Anyway, so heating up, boiling, and then we get around to brine.
In chemistry, we call that a supersaturated solution.
It may well be. It's certainly at room temperature, it didn't want to dissolve, but I heated it up a bit. Didn't get any crystals precipitating out, though, when I cooled it down. So maybe not quite supersaturated.
As long as you don't tap it,
yeah,
whatnot, then a supersaturated solution will stay solvated. But you have to be careful with it.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, I was, it was chilling. As you see here, I've got a bowl of cucumbers, a rather ratty looking end of a head of celery, and some onions. And those are the three vegetables that go in these pickles.
I want garlic in my jar of pickles.
Oh,
dill.
That's no problem. We'll get to that in a bit. I actually put garlic in these ones, even though they're sweet pickles. Anyways, I threw them in a colander and rinsed them off with water. In the nature of it, they end up lying on the ground as they're growing, so they get a bit of dirt on them. And you see me with a vegetable brush here, scrubbing them off, getting them all nice and clean. And there they are in a bowl, a little bit damp, but You don't want them too wet because you'll dilute that salt solution. So here I put them
Whoa.
on a towel.
Why are some of them light green where some of them are very dark green?
I think the littler ones, the younger ones, aren't quite as dark a green. And also, typically there's a side that's been facing the up towards the sun and a side that's been facing the ground. And the side that's been facing up is the darker green. Yeah, I think that's the best explanation I can give you on that. Yeah. Anyways, I took another towel, patted them dry, and there's the range of sizes. The little one would be just a little over an inch long, and the bigger one is probably a little over 3 inches. For these pickles, that's ideal. So I put them in the, or rather, I put the brine in the bowl I had the pickles in, and I took my celery. You know what? With the pandemic, I didn't want to make another trip to the store and get a fresh head, so I just cut out the parts that weren't too good, and we ended up with a bunch of sliced celery. And then I peeled the outer parts off the onion, the skin, and here it is all together in the brine.
Did you grow onions yourself also?
Actually, the onions I ended up using in this, I had bought, but if we go back a step or two, you can see a plastic container there that's got some multiplier onions that I actually did grow last year. They seem to be keeping quite well, so I wanted to use up the ones I got in the store that I wasn't sure were going to keep so long. And those are just what they call pearl onions that I bought at a local grocery store. So anyways, there they are, and this went back in the fridge and to soak in the salt and chill overnight. And was it yesterday? The juice, if you will, the pickle juice or vinegar, it's what my grandma's recipe calls sweet vinegar, and it calls for equal parts of sugar and vinegar, 1 cup of sugar for each cup of vinegar, and some pickling spice as well for flavor. Where will we go here? Okay.
Do you use cane sugar, brown sugar?
This is white, and I'm pretty sure that it's cane sugar. It isn't labeled as cane or beet, but I'm pretty sure it's cane. Yep. Now, of course, in a collapse situation, sugar might be a little problematical. This year in my garden, interestingly enough, I'm growing some sorghum. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's well, the way it works is similar to sugarcane. It's although sorghum looks more like corn when it's growing, until it actually gets the head on it, which it's both a source of sugar and a grain. But anyway,
what about growing beets?
You can grow beets too. The reason I struck upon I favor sorghum because it's simply a matter of I actually have a thing that looks like a wringer washer. It's made for wringing water out of shop towels, but you just feed the stalks of sorghum through that, and this green juice comes running out. You put it in a pot in the stove and boil it down to, well, however you want, however thick a syrup you want, and that's it. The procedure is very simple. The procedure to make beets into sugar is a fair bit more complicated. So I have grown sugar beets. It's almost silly to say so, but the darn things are extremely sweet, really too sweet to use for anything but making sugar. Anyways, yeah, so that's obviously in Ontario and even more so Alaska, sugar cane doesn't grow, but sugar beets do. And I don't think probably sorghum would grow in Alaska, but it grows okay in Ontario and it grows great further south. So there are ways that you can get sweeteners. beyond what we do today, which is you go to the baking section in the grocery store and pick up a bag of sugar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
anyway, uh, there we are. So I dumped that in. I'm making 8 cups of each. So I did 2 of those 4-cup measuring cups with sugar. And then there's vinegar, which is just, in this case, pure white vinegar. You know, vinegar isn't hard to make at home either. It takes some sort of alcoholic beverage, be it wine or cider, and there's then you need some of the type of bacteria that produce acetic acid, which is just the chemical name for vinegar.
Yeah.
You can actually order kits for doing that on the internet. You can get anything on the internet these days, and you could make your own vinegar. I suspect, even though I don't partake of alcoholic beverages myself, the majority of people do and enjoy them a good deal, and I suspect that would be true after collapse as well as it is now before. That if there's any way of making alcohol, people will be doing so. And with the leftover bits and pieces, you just throw them in a jug that has some of this bacteria, and away you go. It's going to turn into vinegar. And in a lot of cases, as you may know, if it's left lying around at room temperature, wine will turn into vinegar anyways, without any help, because those bacteria are just around.
Yeah, well, one of my basically 3 next projects that I would like to get going when I develop a little bit more energy from my current fairly low energy after my battles with what I think was coronavirus. I am going to start making sake, rice wine, which is my favorite type of wine these days, and then I'm going to start distilling potato vodka with a distiller, and the other ones are I'm going to start growing mushrooms, which with my climate, cool, dark, etc.
Ideal conditions.
Ideal conditions for mushrooms, yeah. I can do out in my on my porch, and I can grow a lot of them. And I'm even going to try doing some really tough ones. What do you call it? Including truffles.
Oh wow!
Buy an inoculated truffles log and try to do that. And those things are worth a lot of money. If you sell them on the market.
It's amazing what you can do, eh?
Yeah, it's really hard. I don't know. I probably, if I do get going on it, I probably wouldn't do that this year. I'll grow simple stuff, some white buttons and some, what do they call it, criminies, and maybe oyster mushrooms. But if I'm reasonably successful with that, then next year maybe I'll try doing the truffles, which would be quite a feat. And then the last one is a simple one, which really should be doing right fucking now, which is growing my own herbs. I have a whole kit, a hydroponic kit that fits in my windowsill and whatnot, that I can, with all the seeds from dill and rosemary and basically about a dozen different spices, basil, that I could be growing, but I just haven't had the energy to set it up, unfortunately.
No, I understand how that can be, certainly. We're fortunate in this area. Oregano grows wild around here, and I
Mhm.
ended up with some growing in my front yard, and I've encouraged it rather than discouraging it. And last year, in one of the garden beds in the front yard, we planted some thyme, and I said, I wonder if that, I don't know whether that's actually a perennial or an annual or what, but it came back, or it came through the winter. It was a pretty mild winter, and so we had time this year without having to plant it. And we have, let's see, basil and rosemary both that we just bought the plants at a nursery and growing them in a pot on the deck, outside the kitchen. You can run out and get some when you need it. They're certainly superior to your regular dried herbs, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Fresh herbs
Yep.
in your meal, in whatever it is that you're fixing, really do improve on the overall flavor and just everything.
Yeah, I'll
Totally
say.
improves meals. They're particularly Italian food. I'm getting into pasta
Oh, yes.
phase now, so I'm going to do a lot of pasta meals.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are Italian in base, but some I'm doing are Mexican and some are Asian.
Yeah.
And I would like to have my own fresh ones, because when I buy the fresh ones in the store, it's like $5 for a little
Yeah.
pack.
Yeah, I'll say.
I have the dried ones, of course, and I can always use them, but
Yes.
the fresh ones are so much better.
Yeah, the dried ones just aren't the same. You use them when you've got no alternative, sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
there may be a point here in the future.
Oh,
where
yeah. Well, I wish you success with the herb growing project. That's next year, eh?
No, I'm going to try to start the herb growing project.
Oh, indoors. Yeah, you were
indoors.
saying.
It'll be indoors year round.
Yep.
I'm not going to try to do that one outdoors. The
Hey.
mushrooms will go out in the back porch, which is perennially in the shade, even in summertime, because of the direction that the sun comes in, and where my building is. So that's never gets sunlight, and the mushrooms should grow outside in these temperatures, which right now are hovering in the mid 60s to at most the 70s. But a little later in the year, they're gonna, maybe another month or two, they're gonna be down to the 50s and 60s. And I think that temperature would be just about perfect for the mushroom growing.
Yeah, it probably is.
We'll see.
Well, I hope that works for you. It's something I'd like to try myself, actually, but not
Great,
something I have any expertise in. So,
great source of potassium. Well, I grew psilocybin mushrooms in college.
Yeah.
When I was in the biology lab.
Yeah.
I worked in the biology lab as one of the techs there, and I had my own section of the lab to grow stuff and do stuff. I was mostly working on lettuce because we were doing various types of lettuce breeding and seeing how we could manipulate the genetics at the time. This was in this was in the 70s. And lettuce, Great Lakes lettuce was our the big one that we used a lot. But in there, I threw in the mushrooms, unbeknownst to my supervisors.
I suspect it would have to be.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst, eh?
Yeah.
On the sly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
let's go
let's go on with the pickling. So there was some. I think I missed one. Okay. Yeah. So here we have the sugar in the vinegar, and the bubbles there you see are just some air bubbling to the top from the sugar. Again, this has to be heated up to get it to dissolve. Here, I think you can actually see the steam coming out of the pot there. Boils quicker with the lid on. But there we have the nice boiling, and it's not really thick syrup, but it's a pretty strong solution of vinegar and sugar. And here I have a piece of cheesecloth that's sitting in a bowl, and I think that's a two tablespoon measuring spoon there, and I put 2 of it in there, so 4 tablespoons of the pickling spice, which is mainly mustard seed, black peppercorns, and it looks like bay leaf, but there's probably some other things in it too. Comes pre-mixed. Anyways, so I tied it up and I put it in there, and took now that the sugar's all dissolved, I turned the heat off. Now there we can see it a little closer. And I went and had supper, and then after supper I set this whole thing up. You see the big enamel canning kettle on the left at the front of the stove, which is in this case strictly to sterilize the jars. And on the front at the right, you see the pot that I've got that sweet vinegar in. And at the back on the right is just a pot with water in it, which we'll get to the purpose of that in a moment. And here's some of my my instruments. The back left there, a nice funnel for getting things into the jars, and the front left, a pair of, I don't know whatchamacallits for picking up the jars out of the boiling water. Couple of sets of...
I call them pinchers.
Pinchers, okay, sounds good to me. You need something to get them out of the boiling water. It's a little hard on the skin. And there's a couple of pairs of tongs, and a little whatchamacallit between the tong and the ladle. It has a magnet on the end, which is great for picking out the lids and the rings for the jars, and the ladle, which I use to get the sweet vinegar out of the pot and into the jars, and a wire basket, which all the veggies go in and into boiling water for a few minutes before they get put in the jars. So here we are draining the brine off the veggies in a big sieve that nicely fits over my sink. And here we have, you have the same sieve.
Yeah.
It's pretty handy, an extremely handy device.
Yeah.
My wife ribs me. I'm always using sieves.
Yeah, the two sides, they expand or contract and they fit, the size of your sink perfectly.
Yep.
And they're great, for straining out shit and whatnot, when you have to do that, and make it very easy. That is a great piece of cooking equipment. I love it.
Yep, I wouldn't know what I'd do without it, actually. So these are not the jars that I'm going to use to pickle these in, but I've just put them in these jars to see how much I've got. And it turns out, unfortunately, I've got enough for 3 jars. That's how I measure them out. And just to see how the water's doing, because I was getting impatient, stick my cooking thermometer into that big jug or big pot of water. It's only up to 131 Fahrenheit, so it's got a ways to go yet. But eventually it did come to a boil. And at the same time, you can see what's in those other 2 pots. On the left, the sweet vinegar which is turning a kind of an amber color, which is leached out of the pickling spice and plain old water in the other one. Now we've put the pickling jars, which I think you can just sort of see in the picture here, in the boiling water in the big kettle or pot. And here I've put some of my vegetables in this wire basket, put them in that boiling water for, I'm timing it for 3 minutes this year. I cooked them too long last year and they were mushy. And I like a pickle to have a nice crunch to it. So, yep. So, brought them out of the boiling water and just put the wire basket down in a nice clean bowl so it didn't contaminate the vegetables. And you can see I've got a jar just fresh out of the boiling water with the funnel in the top of it. I think this must have been the second jar because you can see the first one on the right. In the background there, there's two things. One is a plastic bag of dried chili peppers, and next to that already made up jar of pickles is a plastic bag full of cloves of garlic. I was lazy and I bought the pre-peeled ones. Makes things go quicker. And there's I think 3 of the chili peppers, one on the bottom, one in the middle, and the top in each of these jars of pickles, and probably 3 or 4 cloves of garlic too, just to give it a little more zing. Anyways, here you have me picking one of the larger cucumbers up with a pair of tongs and dropping it through the funnel into the jar, and so on and so forth. Away we went, and finished up with 3 jars of pickles. And as you can see, as they sit in there, they go a kind of a duller green. The one on the left the picture was taken just after the lid went on it, and the other 2 had been sitting in the sweet vinegar for a few more minutes, and they'd already turned the final color they're going to be. Is this it? I think maybe this is the last picture. Yeah, it is. Excuse me. I'm going to hit cancel there. And if I can figure out how to do this, yeah, we're going to come back and we're going to, are you seeing me or the pictures yet, Ari?
Currently, I'm seeing me.
Okay.
I'm not
All right,
seeing.
that's because that's what's on my screen. So I have to tell it to stop sharing, and it did. And very shortly, you should have me back.
There you are.
Okay. I don't know if that's an improvement or not, but anyway, here we are, back face to face again.
You're about as good looking as I am.
I'll let you get away with that.
Yeah, we're never going to go viral with our looks, unfortunately.
I guess that's true. I did have a haircut since the last time we talked. I don't know if it shows, but I'm a lot less woolly than I was.
Did you go to a commercial hair cutting place?
I did, actually, the same one where I've always had my hair cut, for the last few years anyways. And they opened up in sort of towards the end of June. And I let it go for a couple of weeks, and there was no word of any outbreak of COVID-19 around here. So I thought, well, that's probably safe, and I made an appointment, and away we went. And I had my beard trimmed and my hair cut. So there you go.
Well, I have not visited a barber since well before COVID. The last one I visited was when I was down visiting my friend and co-administrator on the diner, K-Dog, in Seattle. That was the last time I had an official haircut, and that was in, I think it was October of last year. And I've been doing my own hair trimming and beard trimming since. And I'm also changing my look. If you'll notice, you'll see I have sideburns growing out now. They take a while
Yeah.
because my facial hair does not grow very quickly, but they're
Yeah.
getting. And the reason for this is K-Dog and myself had a competition going for a while as to who could do the better likeness of Leon Trotsky.
There you go. Yeah,
So
I'm more of a Karl Marx guy myself, but
I was working with Trotsky with
yeah,
the mustache going into the goatee.
yeah,
Uh,
there you go.
but K-Dog won that contest, I
Did
think.
he? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
well, can't win them
His
all.
his Trotsky was better than my Trotsky.
Yeah.
Okay, there it goes. But now I'm switching to my own personal communist hero, Che Guevara. And
Oh yeah.
Che had lamb chop sideburns, you see.
Oh, there
So
you are.
that's what I'm trying to do is grow out lamb chop sideburns. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but like I said, it's not doing too bad. It's only a few weeks into it. And I can do all the rest of the beard trimming myself and most of the hair trimming. I have all the equipment. So,
Yeah.
and if I have one of my cripple helpers come in, then I definitely don't need to go to a commercial barber. I
Yeah.
just tell them how to cut and what to do, and I know how to cut hair. It's
Yeah. Well, it's a good skill. It's a good
not that
skill to have these days.
yeah, it's not that fucking hard.
Yeah.
Uh, I can do beards, I can do hair, and you don't need to go to cosmetic school or cosmetology or whatever to learn how to cut hair. Just get clippers, get a razor, and just practice. It's not hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even with only one arm. When I had both of them working right, and I was really good. But I can still do it. So anyway, all right. So